Welcome to this special series where we explain our research papers. My name is Tobias Polak and I'm a Director of Real-World Data at myTomorrows and a PhD candidate focusing on expanded access. I will guide you through our academic contributions, covering the introduction, methods, result and discussion sections of the papers that we have written. The research presented here is a product of a public-private collaboration between Erasmus Medical Center, myTomorrows and Erasmus University. Here, I would like to present the results of our first paper, which is titled Expanded Access as a Source of Real-World Data, an overview of FDA and EMA approvals. This paper has been published in the British Journal of Clinical Pharmacology in March 2020, and you can find a link to the full publication in the description. Expanded access programs provide patients with life-threatening or seriously debilitating diseases who are not eligible for registered treatment options or trials a pathway to access investigational medicine. Expanded access goes by many names, such as compassionate use, early access, managed access, special access, pre-approval access, or, to add to the confusion, local language versions thereof, such as the French ATU, Autorisation temporaire d'utilisation, a temporary use authorization. Next to providing treatment, these programs may sometimes be used to collect data, and these data are referred to as real-world data, data on safety and efficacy that are gathered outside of conventional trials. In conferences and reports, there have been some examples of how these data from expanded access programs have been used by regulators in their decision-making. However, a systematic overview is lacking. So in this paper, we set out to identify and characterize all FDA and EMA approvals that relied, in part, on data from expanded access programs to inform the profile of clinical efficacy. So, how could we determine whether a drug approval used data from expanded access program in the first place? Well, on public FDA and EMA websites, you can find all the appraisal documentation, including medical reviews, statistical reviews, labels, label updates, product summaries, and so forth and so on. But reading all these thousands of pages for each and every approval would be a drudgery, and we would surely make errors. Therefore, we decided to automate this work. To that end, we wrote a computer script to automatically download all the documentation up to January 1st, 2020 that was publicly available for each and every approved drug. And subsequently, we would have the computer scan these documents for expanded access references, such as early access, special access, managed access, or compassionate use. And then we would only manually go through the documents that included one of these terms, and we could simply discard the documents without a reference to expanded access. So, in layman's terms, we would simply open a document, click on Control Find, and search the document for compassionate use or expanded access, and then we could automate this process for over 22,000 documents. However, there was one little hitch. Older FDA documentation includes stamps, handwritten signatures, and these documents were uploaded as images rather than as Word or PDF files. And therefore, the standard Control Find functionality doesn't work. So, we first have to convert the image into text before we could actually process it. This machine learning technique is called optical character recognition, or OCR, and it helps to derive text from images. So after we converted the image into text, we could again press Control Find in the texts and resume our algorithm. For the documents that were included for manual review because they harbored an expanded access term, we manually looked for whether this term actually referred to data from an expanded access program, and whether these data were used to support the efficacy profile. If this was the case, we further categorized how these data were used by looking whether these data were cited in the pivotal data section or in the supportive data section. In the end, we downloaded over 22,500 documents from both the EMA and the FDA websites. The vast majority did not contain expanded access terms, so luckily, we only had to scan through 693 documents ourselves. And these documents were related to 177 individual unique approvals, as of course there are multiple documents per individual approval. Out of these 177 approvals, 49 approvals used data from expanded access to inform the clinical efficacy profile. There was an overlap of 10 approvals between the FDA and the EMA, as obviously, in these cases, both agencies approved these compounds using, in part, expanded access data. So there are actually 49 minus 10 equals 39 individual unique approvals that used EAP data for efficacy. Surprisingly, although the fancy term real-world data only became trendy in the last 5 years, we could already observe evidence of the usage of data from EAPs in regulatory decision-making as far back as the 1990s. 13 out of 39, that is 1 in 3, approvals that used the EAP data listed these data from these programs under the pivotal section. This is frequently the case in rare diseases, where the number of patients in the EAP relative to the number of patients in the trial can be high. Furthermore, some super rare approvals are entirely based on emergency expanded access use, together with huge clinical benefits observed. All 4 of these instances are detailed in the paper. So, in the end, we identified 49 FDA and/or EMA approvals that use data from expanded access programs. Hopefully, we've added some clear evidence to a discussion that, so far, has been mainly anecdotal. In contrast to various beliefs that you cannot use these data or only collect safety data, we systematically reviewed all FDA and EMA decisions and found ample examples of the collection of efficacy data from expanded access programs. Of course, there are also some limitations to our work. First, we excluded all the appraisals that did not mention any term related to expanded access, and albeit unlikely, there may have been appraisals that we have missed, which implies that our findings are a lower bound of the cases that expanded access has actually been used by regulators. Second, the exact impact of expanded access data, that is, what would have happened without these data, is impossible to quantify. We base our supportive or pivotal classification on the sections in the regulatory dossier, but a precise definition of what's considered pivotal or supportive and what not does not exist. We would hypothesize that the fact that expanded access programs can generate valuable data by regulators would entice pharmaceutical industry to run more expanded access programs and thereby speed up access for patients and physicians. However, the changing scope of expanded access from only treatment provision to treatment provision and evidence generation certainly warrants further investigation. Lastly, the use of these data for other stakeholders, such as in publications for the scientific community or in reimbursement dossiers for cost-effectiveness evaluation, remains a topic for future research. If you want to learn more about how to design and implement real-world data collection during your expanded access program, please feel free to drop us a note.